The natural world is not a commodity. It's an amazingly complex system that we are still a part of. My name is Scott, and I'm a naturalist from the UK. And to not mince words, I absolutely hate living here. And here's why. The official definition of ecocide is the destruction of the natural environment by deliberate or negligent human action. And well, Britain is literally built on the graves of its natural ecosystems. As with most lands that humanity migrated into, the British Isles saw a substantial decrease in megafauna once they arrived. Humans likely being the driving force for the localized extinction of animals like woolly mammoth, cave lions, and hyenas in the region. But this is far in the past, and for the most part, these primitive people can't be held accountable for their actions, as they themselves were just animals trying to survive, and did so too well for those aforementioned species to compete. Fast forward to the last 2,000 years, and Brits had eradicated lynx during the Middle Ages, followed shortly after by the brown bear, and later, our last apex predator. The grey wolf was hunted to extinction only a few hundred years ago, in the 16th century. But they weren't done yet. When the Industrial Revolution rolled around, that brought about heavier pollutants. Demand for lumber soared, and the UK's great forests and wild areas were slowly being converted into agricultural land. Many experts have identified the birth of the Industrial Revolution as a tipping point for extinctions of species on land, especially in Britain where said birth first took place. So now we know what ecocide is, and Britain's history. Why is ecocide bad? The answer largely lies with biodiversity. Biodiversity is essentially the variety of plant and animal life in a particular area, a high level of which is usually considered to be important and desirable. According to the Definitive State of Nature report, 56% of UK species declined since the 70s, and 15% are now threatened with extinction. And of the 218 countries assessed for biodiversity intactness, the UK is ranked 189th, making us one of the most nature-depleted nations on Earth. So, yeah, go us. Every species in an ecosystem plays an important role, from the microbes in the soil, the birds distributing seeds, the predators that weed out the weak from the herds, the trees and underground fungi that keep them connected. Every piece of this great system matters and is necessary for it to work. So why is high biodiversity not just desirable but necessary for humanity? Well, the health of a country's ecosystems is directly linked to the health of its people. For a very basic example, a variety of invertebrates in an area drastically increases crop yield, filling the soil with nutrients and pollinating crops more effectively than anything man can do. In fact, a more robust ecosystem is resilient to invasive pests that would otherwise spoil crops. This directly affects the abundance and quality of food that we have access to in our supermarkets. But benefits are not just limited to food, of course. Sometimes referred to as nature deficit disorder, having a lack of contact with nature has been shown to result in a weaker immune system, higher rates of depression, lower air quality, eyesight impairment, just to name a few things. When flipped and nature is restored to an area, the opposite can be seen, and negative health problems decrease in the population's frequency. You have probably heard that climate change is impacting the lives of species and people across the world, but you may not have known that species, and in turn their ecosystems they're a part of, are able to influence the climate. When you think about it, it's no surprise that systems maintained by animals, plants, fungi, and all sorts of organisms feed back into the climate. All living things are made up of carbon. The more living wild things, especially trees and megafauna, the more carbon stored in living systems. The UK actually has some of the world's best carbon sinks in nature. Peat bogs. These wonderful environments have been shown to store carbon even better than forests, as found on the peatlands of the former Soviet Union, were calculated to remove 52 teragrams of carbon from the atmosphere. Of course, with each of these examples, I'm only scratching the surface of what benefit biodiversity brings and what we're losing without it. After all, this channel is called Basically Nature. So why don't people act on this with much more urgency? Well, for entire species to go extinct in a region, it can take a while for people to notice. This is called shifting baselines. It's basically a change in how systems are measured using previous reference. If you're comparing how things are now to when you were younger, you might not see much of a change. Even if you compare things to how when your parents were children, things may only appear slightly different. But all these gradual changes add up, and now, for example, most people in the UK have never seen a wild deer, or are aware that the last golden eagle in Wales was shot dead just a few months from making this video. So with today's knowledge about this continued biodiversity loss, what do you think our government is doing? Well, take a look.
One of the security hit me on the head repeatedly. I believe it was this man here.
Have you got his number? What's your number?
What is your number?
A fox runs in front of a huntsman. Following their prey, the hounds pursue it. Seconds later, it's picked up by another camera on this private industrial estate.
In the year 2020, the Prime Minister vowed that the country would take biodiversity loss seriously and take strides to protect its wildlife, giving back around 30% of UK land to increase biodiversity, pledging $1.3 billion to the cause. But since then, very little has been done. He later promised $16.5 billion to the military, promising laser guns. You literally couldn't make this up. The pledges of this country's government have fallen through before. A similar statement was made in 2015, and nothing has changed. For the better, at least. This can be summed up in a term called greenwashing. It is a form of marketing spin in which green PR, green values, and green marketing are deceptively used to persuade the public that an organization's products, aims, and policies are environmentally friendly. Well, my dear viewer, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that our current government, and many of the prior governments we've had, do not understand or care enough to put real actions in place. Now here are some examples of what Britain could look like if our government got their act together and did what needs to be done. These wolves are in Belgium. This country has a similar population density to the UK, and wolves have naturally come back to this area, enjoying legal protection from the government to stop would-be hunters from killing them. This gorgeous sight is from the United States. The US is a country often looked upon as having poorer animal welfare laws, but after modelling their national parks to protect nature first and allow human use second, their wildlife thrives. The opposite strategy is utilised in Britain today. This massive internal vegetable farm allows the Netherlands to produce more food whilst using a fraction of the land. I know I'm a far way into the video by now, but I just wanted to stop and say that I'm not trying to belittle the amazing work done in this nation by its true nature lovers. Organisations like Rewilding Britain, Wild East, the World Land Trust, the Wildlife Trusts, etc. They're all incredible organisations. But this is more so to illuminate that no matter what we're currently doing, it's nowhere near enough. And it's those in charge of our government and their enablers who are to blame. So why did I make a video essentially harping on the UK? To put it bluntly. I am tired, I am sick, and I am saddened at the state of nature in this country. We allow the government to get away with so much. They make false promises, fail to uphold promises they made in the past, and we let it slide. We get angry for a little bit, and then we forget. We do that too much, Britain. We forget too often. And we allow these lazy but good liars into power. Why? Why do we stop thinking about things that are majorly important? The most important things today, biodiversity and climate change, are interlinked completely. But still, these are flights of fancy for most, and it shouldn't be. We're supposed to be a nation of animal lovers. We gave rise to Mary Anning, Thomas Huxley, Charles Darwin, David Attenborough, to name a few. But what do? We sit in our gardens in the summertime enjoying the green, we enjoy the bees, everything. But what do we do to promote that? We sit by and let things slide. Right now, the government has verified another pesticide that's been banned by Europe. It's been banned by Europe, but we say, yeah, that's fine. It kills bees, it kills all sorts of invertebrates that are already on the decline. But no. They're very short-sighted, these people. They only care about money and winning the favor of the people with more money. So next time you vote, think about who you're voting for and the future you're voting for. And I invite you as an individual, not as a group, as an individual, to do your own research on this. Don't be swayed by words, not even mine. Be swayed by your own actions and your own knowledge, because it is important. Everyone needs to know how important our natural world is. For goodness sake, it shouldn't be a flight of fancy. Quite frankly, it's ridiculous that it's come to that. It's an integral part of life, and we will not succeed unless the natural world thrives. Please, don't sit idly by and ignore it. I'm Scott Pye. I'm very angry nobody on the internet, but hopefully this made you think more than once.